Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Okay, guys, listen up. You're going to be inspired. You're going to be motivated. And I think you're going to find our time together with our special guest to be pretty interesting. What a delight to have us with us today, Robert Bakke. Now, this guy, where do I start? He's a jet captain, aerobatic flight instructor. He and I already have a lot in common because we're pilots. Black belt, regional champion, best-selling author, race car driver, ski instructor. He ran a multi-million-dollar company before the age of 24. He's written a book, which I think it just says it all, and that is Prayer at Full Throttle, How Performance-Based Prayers Make Miracles Happen. He leaps tall buildings, he eats Wheaties, and outruns locomotives. Hi, Robert.
Good morning, Perry, and good to your audience.
Good to see you. Wow, what a story. Glad to have you with us today. How did all this start for you?
Well, it's really quite an interesting transition that occurred in my life. In fact, when people look at my life today, Perry, they would never know what it looked like when I was growing up. And I never ask for sympathy about this, but I was that skinny little kid who was picked last in gym class every single day, didn't have an ounce of self-confidence, and ended up in college with absolutely no idea why I was there. And the only thing I picked up on, and I can't really put my finger on it as to why, but I picked up that everybody was telling me what to believe about God. You know, I had Lutheran friends, Catholic friends, Jewish friends, Mormon friends, you name it. And everybody told me what to believe about God, but nobody had read the book. And so since I had this soft cover New Testament, and I really didn't like reading my college textbooks, I just decided one day I would read the New Testament to figure out for myself what it said. And what I found out was that when you are void of self, or what I would call self-confidence, when you are a complete and total empty vessel, you are a prime candidate to be filled with the power and the Word of God. In fact, when I read the New Testament, and I read it in 2 translations, I wasn't looking for spiritual enlightenment at all. And yet, while I read it, I saw more and more visions for my life, multiple visions for my life, and I believe that the Lord was telling me back then that He was asking me to prove that through Christ all things were in fact possible, and I had to prove them by my actions so that my words would be credible. You know, my example would be credible. And so that's what happened. I emerged out of the New Testament just a ball of ambition to accomplish the things that the Lord asked me to do. And that's what my resume reads today.
All right, so when did you find God? I mean, tell us about your actual conversion. I mean, reading it and understanding it's great, but when did you connect?
Well, I connected when I read it. I had grown up in a regular mainstream church of religion. I went every Sunday morning. I was baptized, confirmed, and went through all those, you know, the regular Sunday morning religion process. But I didn't know the Lord. In fact, when I read the New Testament, I was kind of surprised they didn't teach you that stuff in church. I grew up believing, and I apologize if this hurts some feelings, but I grew up believing that being a good Christian meant being poor, being passive. If someone pushed me, I was supposed to fall down. It was not at all about being the light of the world or the light on the hill that couldn't be hidden. It was not at all about believing that all things were possible. And yet when I read the New Testament, I was 19 or 20 years old. That's when I found the Lord. That's when I became empowered. And that's when I began to believe in the talents and abilities that were placed inside of me. And with the new book that's come out now, and I have to tell you, Prayer at Full Throttle was a book. I'm diverging here a bit. The Prayer at Full Throttle was a book I never saw myself writing. It just came crashing down on me one night in a hotel room that the Lord was saying, you're going to write this book. And it's now been a bestseller for 35 straight weeks on Amazon. We couldn't be more thrilled. And the reason it's doing so well is because it's producing miracles. And we've actually included photographs of miracles to prove that they're very real. And that's what people are praying for. People are praying because they want to see something happen. And Prayer at Full Throttle will open up the gateway for those miracles.
Boy, this unlocks so much. By the way, people can get your book by going to your website?
Well, if they go to my website, it'll just shoot them to Amazon. So I just point everybody to Amazon.com, Prayer at Full Throttle, and it's available in all formats, including ebooks.
Look for it, Amazon.com, and again, it's Prayer at Full Throttle, and there's a picture of it there on the screen with him standing next to his race car. Boy, this opens up so much, Robert, because so often when people have an experience like that, they feel called to something that is more religiously ministry oriented, and you didn't go that way. You actually took a man's desire to be successful in business and racing cars and flying airplanes and let God use you there. How'd you do that?
It was just what I believed he was calling me to do. In fact, I used to call my roommate over and I would read passages, scriptures out of the New Testament. And that was probably my first preaching experience. And the different visions that I was seeing back then, my roommate from back then is still a good friend of mine. He's watched all of these things unfold. And really, when you look at being the light of the world that cannot be hidden, which was one of the first scriptures that jumped out at me, we cannot be the light of the world that cannot be hidden if we're not doing something. And not, everybody has different callings. I get that. I mean, there's people that are called into missions, and their heart is to go to third world countries and provide food and medical care. That's a calling. Some people are street evangelists. That's a calling. Some people are pastors. That's a ministry gift. For me, my calling was just something different. Mine was to go out and to race cars and get in front of people and be a disciple for the Lord in these environments that people really weren't expecting. But that's why it's been so effective. I am just following what I truly believe in my heart is the calling that was placed on my life.
What came first? Give us a sequence from race cars and jets and black belt.
Well, it's actually very interesting. All I ever wanted to do as a child was race cars. That was it. I knew as a child that the Lord built me to race, but when you grow up in Minneapolis, no one would believe that's a calling of the Lord, and so that gets dismissed. Later on in life, we would find out that that's where the miracles would truly occur. But the first calling on my life when I read the New Testament was for me to become a black belt, and it's so interesting, Perry, because every one of these journeys I've taken, the world has told me is impossible. And so people have to remember that when you embark on a God-sized goal in your life, when you step into your calling, don't be surprised if people tell you it can't be done. In fact, there's a scripture in the New Testament that says that those that know the Lord listen to us. Those that don't know him don't listen to us. But there's a translation of that in something called the Paraphrased Edition, and it says this: you'll know a message comes from God because the world won't accept it. And so my first call was to become a black belt. Everybody laughed at me. They said I was too small, I was too fragile, I'd get beat up, I'd quit. Keep in mind, I was that skinny little kid in gym class who was picked last last for the teams every single day. And so when I began that pursuit of a black belt, what it was doing, and I didn't realize it at the time, was it was erasing the biggest insecurity in my life. I was so insecure about my size that insecurity carried through into all kinds of different areas. And so by conquering that insecurity, by becoming a black belt, by becoming a regional karate champion, that was put to bed. And then rolling out of college into business, I had these other scriptures in my head. One of them was to throw myself into my tasks so that other people could see my improvement and progress. And the other one was that all things were possible. And so those two scriptures coming into business catapulted me in business almost immediately out of college. And I was running a multi-million-dollar company here in Minneapolis by the age of 24. All of it is Bible-based. So that's really what got the momentum going.
How did you pray? I mean, you're talking to God, and he said, once you get the black belt, while you're doing the black belt, you overcome one of your greatest issues in life, and that is to, build your self-esteem and go into business. How did you qualify those calls? Well,
I just believe, I could see the visions, first of all. It's interesting, the Old Testament book of Habakkuk says, write the visions, make them plain upon the tables. And I wasn't aware of that scripture at the time, but I would learn it. And that's what I had done. I saw the visions for my life. They were very clear. And I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them, and I would stay focused. It was like a to-do list for life. The other thing that made my prayers so different from everybody else's is that I put actions behind my prayer. I didn't just pray and expect magic fairy dust to fall out of the sky. No, I made God number one in my life. I say good morning to him every day. I read my Bible before I look at my cell phone. My car is filled with faith-filled CDs. I call it a rolling university. God is number one in my life, and he knows that. And so then when I pray, here's the difference. When I pray for something, I then go out and I work towards it. I show God my winning effort first, and then he'll show me his. Let me tell you an example of this that's biblical. People always talk about David having killed Goliath. Well, I enjoy telling people David didn't kill Goliath, and that normally puts a blank stare on their face. But if you read the story, and I encourage your entire audience to take this to heart, I'll give you an Old Testament and New Testament example. David said, the Lord delivered him from the lion, and the Lord delivered him from the bear, and the Lord would deliver him from the Philistine. And that's exactly what he told Goliath. He said, the Lord will deliver you today. So David was humble enough to know where his power came from. But he didn't just sit still. No, he rose up, he ran at Goliath, he loaded his slingshot, and he flung the rock. That's faith with works. And as we learn in the New Testament, it says faith without works is dead. And so for God to come through and produce the miracle you're looking for, he's probably going to come down and do it through your very hands. And so we have to put works into our faith.
All right, we're talking to Robert Bakke. His book, this is fascinating, Prayer at Full Throttle, How Performance-Based Prayers Make Miracles Happen. Let me take a quick break. We'll come right back with Robert. And by the way, you can get this by going to Amazon and get it off of Amazon there. So fascinating. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. What an honor today to be talking to Robert Bakke. He's authored a book called Prayer at Full Throttle, How Performance-Based Prayers Make Miracles Happen. Fascinating story. You can get this book online at Amazon, so let me encourage you to check it out and get a copy of it. So many interesting things. There's no way we're going to cover it all today, but we're going to try to get through a couple things. Hey, let me fast forward. Tell me about your aviation experience.
Well, one of the things I saw when I read the New Testament is that I would become a jet captain. And that made sense to me because I'd grown up with this huge adoration for auto racing, and I also enjoyed severe weather. So those were kind of my two interests, but I didn't really think about airplanes. And then while I was in college and I read the New Testament, suddenly, a career in aviation came onto the scene, and I had seen private jets, and they were like race cars, and they got to go up into the weather. And so I decided I would do that. And then, as would always happen, people said if I didn't go into the military, that I would never get anywhere. And I said, well, no, actually, I'll stay in business, and I'll create my own career. People said that wasn't possible. It couldn't be done. They said even if I could get all my ratings by the time I could possibly finish it on my own, that I would be too old and nobody would hire me, and that I would never make it into jets. You should have heard what the world had to say about God's plan on my life. Today, I've been a jet captain for 17 years. So can you imagine what my life would look like, or what other people's lives are going to look like if they feel those callings and yet they listen to the negativity that the devil's going to pour down on them? We have to disregard that negative advice and pay attention to the Lord, His calling, and His teachings. And that's where the power comes from, and that's what drove me into my aviation career.
Wow. Does God really drive a Ford?
I'm really glad you brought that up. There's a chapter in the book called "Apparently God Drives a Ford," and you know, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but you know, humility is good, right? Years ago, and it was just prior to the onslaught of the sport utility vehicle, I was living in a suburb of Minneapolis, and I bought a Ford F-150 pickup truck. And back then, if you had a pickup truck, you had the only utility vehicle for miles around. And what I found out was, after I got the truck, people started calling me that I didn't even knew I existed. And you know, they would call me, they'd be my buddy, they'd ask about my parents, they'd ask about my job. But at the end of the phone call, it was always the same. They just wanted to borrow my truck. And so I used to I used to just make jokes about it. Well, but what happened was, I realized that my prayer life had gotten to be a lot like those phone calls to borrow my truck. And here's the key to everybody watching and listening is, you know, we don't like it when people call us just because they want to use us for something. You know, they're looking for something from us. Otherwise, they kind of ignore us. Well, we're made in God's image and in His nature, so there's a clue. If we don't like it when people only call us when they want to use us for something, what makes us think God likes it? And what I found out was my prayers to God were just like those people calling to borrow my truck. I only called God, I only prayed to God when I wanted to ask Him for something. You know, that was wrong. And so the Ford F-150 pickup truck really unleashed my relationship with God. I started talking to Him every day. I talk to Him while I'm driving my car. I talk to Him when I'm in the grocery store. God is my best friend. And that's how we need to treat Him, and not just pray, because now after we've ignored Him for months, well, you know, we're in trouble. So now we're going to give Him a call to ask Him for something. I just don't think that lends itself to a whole lot of prayers getting answered in a timely fashion.
You know, I primarily drove a pickup from college all the way through till now, and you're right, people always want to borrow it. I've been tempted to buy an old wrecked up pickup truck. When they call to borrow my truck, I'll let them take that one.
It's so true. The Bible says we're made in God's image and in His nature, and so there's so many things that we can learn about how, you know, or what God is thinking about us or how He's feeling about us, if we compare our relationship with Him, our daily relationship with Him, and we compare that to our relationship with other people. If people do things to us that we don't like, if we do that to God, He probably doesn't like it. And if we, you know, do things, or people do things with us that we enjoy, well, we can rest assured that when we're that way with God, He enjoys it too. So, you know, the book is filled with endless examples of that.
What are you doing now, Robert?
Well, you know, I'm still flying a private jet for a private owner here in Minneapolis. I adore flying. It's fascinating, and it's a gift to be able to do it. We're still racing cars because it's a great outreach, and it sends us as a disciple of the Lord into an environment where He needs us, because He needs us in every single environment. And then, you know, of course, we're out speaking and promoting this book, which is opening up doors everywhere. And so, you know, I'm flying, racing, and speaking the word. That's what we're doing.
You know, the bottom line to what I'm hearing you say here is something I think we have forgotten, and that is we pray and then we just sit back and expect God to move a mountain. And it's not that He can't do that and won't do that, but I think we forget our engaged part of what we need to do to get the ball rolling, so to speak.
Well, okay, here's a really simple example. You know, so many people are trying to do something about weight loss. Well, I have people tell me that, you know, it's already been done, so just pray. It's already been done. We're under grace. Well, you know, I can be pretty blunt about that, and I can say, look, I'll give you two examples. You can have one person who will pray for weight loss, but you can take another person who will pray for weight loss, change their diet, begin exercising every day, and give it 90 days and see who's farther ahead. And I will guarantee you that the person who does all three will get a supernatural blessing and be more successful. And so there's always something we can do. And for the people that think that because now that we're under grace there are no works, I plead with you to understand that we are not saved by our works. We are saved by grace. But our faith requires works. In fact, not only does the scripture that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us tell us we can do all things, which means that there's an action implied. But even the Apostle Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 15:10, he said, "The grace bestowed upon me was not in vain, for I labored more abundantly than they all." He labored, he worked harder than all of them. And that's what's missing in so many people's faith. It's that lack of action. Not to get long-winded, but when we decided to talk about a phrase or create a phrase called performance-based prayer, it's interesting that the word performance appears in the Bible, both Old and New Testament, 71 times. It'll say perform, performed, performing, 71 uses. And if you look in the Strong's Concordance, the definition of performance in its various contexts is an amazing process of miracles. This is where success comes from. It's performance, and this is what it means. It means to rise up, to commit, endure, battle, finish, and succeed. And that's why we call it performance-based prayer. It's an engaged prayer. It's a prayer that's followed by you rising up and committing to the success. And your success is what glorifies the Lord. It's the miracles people are looking for, and it's the miracles that you can manifest through your faith and your actions. That's what people are watching. And when you get your miracles, your faith not only increases, but the children, the lost children that God wants to come home, they're watching your life. And when you produce the miracle you're looking for, those lost children are going to see it. And you know what? They're going to come home to their Father. And you, by your faith and by your performance, will be a huge part of that.
Wow. Beautifully said. All right. The book is entitled Prayer at Full Throttle, How Performance-Based Prayers Make Miracles Happen. Again, you can get that at Amazon. Before I run out of time, Robert, boy, you're inspiring. Psalm 37 says he'll give you the desires of your heart. There's two meanings to that. One is the desire you have in your heart, he put it there, and then the fulfillment of that desire, he makes it happen. What you're saying is get yourself engaged in that, because sometimes people think the American dream is too worldly, when in fact it could be very godly.
I'm telling you what, one of the big misperceptions that a lot of religions are teaching out there is that God expects you to be somehow poor and without any worldly possessions. God doesn't care about that. God says love him first. Love him with all of your heart, all your mind, all your strength. And then he says, I give you richly all things to enjoy. He wants us to enjoy those things. He says that your prosperity, your prosperity gives him pleasure and magnifies him. When you look at the Old Testament particularly, all of the biggest figures in the Old Testament were arguably the wealthiest people on the planet. And the Lord never once attacked them for their wealth because he knew what their heart was. Look at Solomon. He blessed Solomon with untold riches because Solomon didn't want stuff. He wanted wisdom and discernment. So, we need to understand God doesn't care about your wealth. In fact, he says he controls it, but he wants you then to use your wealth to help him establish his covenant. And that opens up a whole nother conversation on tithing and funds and wealth and where.
I think back on that. Thank you. I know your schedule is tight. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being so transparent with this. I think it's a tremendous resource. You may want to check it out. Prayer at Full Throttle, How Performance-Based Prayers Make Miracles Happen by Robert Bakke. And there's a picture of it there on the screen. Check it out at Amazon. His website is robertbakkeministries.com. That's B-A-K-K-E ministries.com. Check it out. Robert, thank you. You're inspiring. We'll get you back.
I look forward to it. Thank you. And again, good morning to your audience. It's been a pleasure.
God bless you, pal. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us. or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, faith-based movies are certainly becoming popular these days, and there are some great ones coming out. In fact, a new one will be coming out April 24th in the theaters called A Matter of Faith. And this is a powerful film with a great message. Earlier, Steve Johnson had a chance to talk to the director of that film, Rich Christiano, who is the director of A Matter of Faith. And let's join their conversation.
Well, this is somewhat an era for faith-based movies. We've seen a whole lot of movies coming both on the big screen and the little screen. A.D., the latest one from Mark Burnett and Roma Downey on TV, but we've also seen a lot of movies at the theaters, and one of those who helps to put those movies in the theaters and make them before they put them in the theater is Rich Christiano. And Rich, give us an idea. You and your brother actually work together to make these films, don't you?
Yes, I have a twin brother, Dave, and it's good to talk to you, by the way, Steve. And we've been doing this for 30 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
Started when I was 5 years old.
I'm sure. How many films have you made so far?
Between us, we've made, I think, 14 different projects. You know, our first 8 films were shorts. You know, movies 30 to 50 minutes, because back in the day when we started, you would make a film and you rent it out to churches. You rent it out to either the pastor or the youth pastor. That was the market. You worked with what was called Christian film libraries around the country, and it was strictly a rental market. Then when VHS came in, the whole industry changed, and Christian bookstores started getting involved, and you start selling your VHSs through ministries and Christian bookstores, and now obviously DVD, and there's Blu-ray and all sorts of things now. And as you said, the doors have been opened up for the theaters, and we like starting with our movies first in the theater, because first of all, the theater is the best place to watch a movie. It has maximum impact, and we can confront the culture that way. You know, people love to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Whether they want them to or not, Christians are going every week, so we're trying to provide an alternative to give them godly entertainment, but also movies that can be used as witnessing tools with non-believers.
Okay, I want to talk about your latest one called A Matter of Faith, and to give our viewers and listeners an idea of what it's all about, we've got a trailer that if they haven't seen it, they don't know anything about it, here's a trailer for A Matter of Faith.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
One of the hardest things for a father is when it comes time to send his little girl off to college.
Complex life forms evolved from simpler life forms.
I really like all of my instructors, especially my biology teacher, Professor Kamen. He's a riot.
The guy's an evolutionist, and there's nothing in the whole course description about biblical creation as even a plausible alternative.
All our public schools and universities teach evolution as the answer to the origins of life.
Evolution versus creationism, what do you say?
Professor Kamen, my dad can't debate you.
I've never done anything like this before.
You debating Professor Kamen is not going to solve anything.
This guy stands against everything that we believe in.
What are you doing?
What did you tell him?
I'm not interested. Do you know how embarrassing this is going to be for me?
Welcome everyone to our debate tonight.
Wasn't the Bible written by men?
Yes, it was.
Then how does that make it the Word of God?
Coming to these theaters April 24th.
And some of those theaters, of course, are the Varsity in Ashland, as well as the Southgate Cinema in Grants Pass, Pelican Cinemas in Klamath Falls, Pony Village Cinema in North Bend, and Crescent City Cinemas in Crescent City. So you're hitting quite a swath of towns in Oregon to start off with. And again, this will be the 24th that this all starts. This particular film, what motivated you to move in this particular direction?
Well, this whole project for us started about 3 years ago, and I think the thing that propelled it is, I don't know whether if the viewers know this, but evolution is taught in our schools and universities across this great land of ours basically as a matter of fact. And if we try to make one point in this film, it's simply this: nobody can prove evolution, because nobody was there at the beginning, can go back and prove it. And to be fair, no person can prove creation. No one can go back in time and prove creation. Both these issues then become a matter of faith, hence the title of the movie. And I just believe the evolution creation controversy or issue is a critical issue. It's obviously foundational to the Christian faith. So we wanted to try to make a film that was meant to be a discussion starter. What I like about this project is anybody can watch this movie. This movie does not come at you, but it presents truth. And that's the key to me when it comes to Christian films. We need to present truth. You know, my brother and I have been doing this for quite a while, 30 years, and a lot of the movies that come out say 2 words about God and think they got a Christian film. You know, when you think about it, people become Christians because they need to hear the gospel, they need to hear the truth, and that's what I think this film does. So we're trying to encourage people, if you know somebody that has maybe drifted away from the Lord or needs to know the Lord, and certainly we all know people like that, this is a very good film to get them to watch because they're not going to feel threatened, but they're going to hear truth, and it's going to open up doors for you to talk to them. For example, you could watch this movie and turn to your friend and say, look, let me ask you this. Where are you in the evolution creation issue? And then the guy's going to give you his response. Now you're in a conversation with him about spiritual things. Then you could say, no, where are you with the Lord? Because this movie is going to present a choice, and it's left up to the viewer to decide which one to choose. And you know, we worked hard on this film. We've played about 100 theaters so far, and without giving you any false hype, Steve, the response has been very good, very good. I think this movie's got heart at the end. The last 25 minutes of this movie, I think, really should work for people. I mean, I think it's pretty compelling and interesting and thought-provoking, and you know, we're praying the Lord will use it. And we appreciate the Dove Network, you guys stepping up to help us bring it to the Oregon area.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting in Ashland again, Grants Pass, Klamath Falls, North Bend, Crescent City, all those places where I know you're hoping that it'll be in the theaters for quite a while. We'll have to see how that works. You know, and I notice people will recognize, especially Harry Anderson there, if they watch Night Court from the 1980s and all that, and he is pretty much the kind of linchpin, I guess you'd say, to this whole story. Now, some people might say, and I've heard you probably have answered this a few times, this is similar to the theme God's Not Dead. How would you describe either the differences or the similarities between your movie, A Matter of Faith, and God's Not Dead?
Yeah, we have gotten that. I mean, I would say this, you know, it's like Star Wars and Star Trek. I mean, they're both sci-fi movies, but they're really different. I mean, God's Not Dead obviously is a college drama, and so is ours. Our movie deals specifically with evolution and creation. Plus, I think our truth goes a little deeper. We hit it a little bit harder, a little stronger. We try to do the truth in love, though. Everything is presented in love. Like I said, it's non-threatening, but I think it hits it a little harder. So, you know, there's always room for more movies, and, you know, people, they're on to the next one, you know. So hopefully they will consider this film. I mean, the response has been really very good across the country as we've shown it. And, you know, one thing we're trying to encourage, especially youth groups and college students, but especially youth groups, you know, youth that are going to secular schools right now face this issue, you know, during their coursework, and certainly when they go on to college. So we're trying to get youth directors to rally to bring their kids, but also for their parents to see this movie. Because, you know, part of the story of this movie is the dad is concerned about what his daughter is learning at college. And he loves his daughter. He cares about his daughter, and he cares about her spiritually. Let me just back up for a second, Steve. I know you showed the trailer, but basically what this movie's about, it's about a freshman girl. She's the only daughter of loving Christian parents. She goes to college, and she takes a biology class, and the biology professor, played by Harry Anderson from Night Court, teaches evolution. But he's funny, he's clever, he's interesting, and the girl starts drifting. He makes it sound good. So after 4 or 5 weeks of school, she comes home to visit her parents, and a spiritual clue is dropped. The dad senses something wrong with his daughter. There's something wrong here, and she's talking about this professor. So he goes online and he realizes this guy's is an evolutionist, he's an atheist, he's an evolutionist. He teaches evolution, and nowhere does it even mention creation as an alternative when it comes to how the world began. So the dad gets the idea, I want to go talk to this professor. Why do you teach just evolution? And it just so happens the campus does these monthly debates, and it's the biology department's turn to do the next debate. And so Harry Anderson's character very cleverly kind of corners the dad, challenges him to a debate, and he accepts. And the daughter's going to go ballistic. You cannot do this. This is going to be the most embarrassing thing. I'm going to have to leave campus now. You can't come and debate the most popular professor. And she's all strung out, and so she won't talk to the dad. So the dad's in a real pickle. He loves his daughter. He wants to stand up for the truth. He knows he's a fish out of water. and it goes from there, you know. And I think the performances in this movie are really solid. The lead, the girl whose name is Rachel in the movie, was played by Jordan Trevelyan. She was excellent. The dad's played by Jay Pickett, does a super job. Clarence Gilliard's in this movie. People might remember him from the Walker, Texas Ranger TV series. You know, he's excellent in this movie. And of course, Harry. It's a good cast. And, you know, hopefully this movie builds. It builds like to the debate. There is a debate in this film. In the last 25 minutes of this movie, I think this movie builds to. So hopefully the viewers will take this as an opportunity. And keep in mind, when it comes to these movies, the most important days are its opening weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Because if your movie does well the first 3 days, then they'll hold it for another week. Because on Monday morning is when all the decisions are made when it comes to movies. Like, let's say, for example, in the Varsity Theater, I don't know how many screens, maybe they have 10 screens. Let's say after opening weekend on Monday morning, they rank those movies from 1 to 10. So if you have one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 films, they're going to keep you for another week. But if you come in 8th or 9th place and they got 3 new movies coming in the next week, you're done after 1 week. So that's why everybody always emphasizes the first 3 days are the most important. And we're just hoping that church groups will turn out and take this movie serious. This movie has a very serious message, but also is inspiring at the end. And we need more Christian films like this that have truth for the churches to support. I feel like in many cases, the films that are being offered to the churches kind of like have pseudo messages to them. You know, like I said, they throw a word or two about God and think they got a Christian film, and they say, well, it's better than what Hollywood's putting out. Well, my attitude is we can do better than that. We can present Christ, we can present truth in a good way, in a way that people will receive. And keep this in mind too, Steve. Movies are powerful, very powerful. In fact, George Lucas, the famous Star Wars director and producer, made this statement years ago. He said, the church, which used to be all powerful, has been usurped by film. In fact, what Lucas is saying is movies are more powerful than the church. And he may be right. Seriously, he may be right. I mean, they're that powerful, and I think that we as the church need to use them for our benefit.
All right. Well, we'll be interested to hear what you have after this, but don't want to jump the gun too much. Want to mention again that A Matter of Faith will be April 24th at the theaters in Ashland at the Varsity, Grants Pass at Southgate Cinemas, Klamath Falls at Pelican Cinemas, North Bend at the Pony Village Cinema, and Crescent City at the Crescent City Cinemas. Rich Christiano, the director of A Matter of Faith, and I'm sure that we'll be talking to you more about your films in the future, but this starts on April 24th, and you're hoping it'll be there for quite a few weeks, so we wish the best for you.
Can I say one more thing, Steve? I want to say something to the viewers. If you don't like this film, Steve said he'll refund your ticket, so look, you got nothing to lose.
Yeah, no, I think it's Rich's twin brother. It's good to have a clone brother, that's for sure. You can always blame things on him.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Lord bless.
All right, there you go. Hey, coming up next, you know, a great ministry here in Southern Oregon doing a great work, Redemption Ridge. Well, some good things happening, and we're going to give you an update coming up next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. What a delight to have in the studio with us today the new executive director of Redemption Ridge, and that is Sharre Witson's with us today. And we're here to talk about, well, a ministry update, and also to get some ideas of open house and with the project they have concerning building an actual place for girls. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Wow. For those who are hearing this term Redemption Ridge for the first time, now we've interviewed Terry and others, but tell us about it. What is the ministry?
Well, Redemption Ridge is a ministry that reaches out to survivors of domestic sex trafficking, especially young girls between the ages of 11 and 17 years old. And we have quite the problem here in Oregon, and a lot of people think it's overseas or in major areas, but not here in their own backyard, and it is. And We're here to help redeem and set free these girls from that horrific life.
You know, and I think we forget I-5 is a major portion of all of this.
Yeah.
Southern Oregon, for some reason, the numbers here are alarming, very discouraging and alarming, and yet out of that comes this birth of this ministry to do something about it. So where are you in the process of things?
Well, there's a lot of wonderful things happening to really reach out and help these girls. The big thing that the ministry wants to accomplish is opening up a residential home to provide that care. There's an estimated up to 6,000 or more victims here in Oregon. And of that, there's been about 200 reported incidences just in the last year alone. But here's the big problem. You can imagine the trauma that this child will go through. Up to over 1,000 rapes in a course of a year alone while she's being trafficked, just day in and day out. Very complex trauma. That's not something a young child is just going to bounce back from. They're going to need comprehensive care and love to just be restored from that. And so we want to open up a home for these girls. And the great news is that we believe that that home will be opened by the end of this year.
You actually have the facility and you're going to go through a major remodel construction. Do you need help there?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of help that's needed in that. First of all, prayer. Please be in prayer with us. Join us in that as we endeavor to do this. The other thing is, hey, if you're a subcontractor and you want to just lend your resources, lend your labor, your help, let us know. We need that. And then ultimately, we need those resources to pay for those tangible things like that sheetrock or the window, or those things. We're going to need that support as well. But we've come a long ways. It's exciting to see where we're at, and we're full of hope, and the community is really rallied around this to where we can be opened by the end of the year.
Okay. Again, redemptionridge.com is the website. What's the phone number if they want to get a hold of you?
Well, the best way to reach me is directly on my cell.
Okay.
And I'm actually going to give out my cell phone number. 530
okay.
227
okay.
2474.
All right, that's 530-227-2474. Sharre, part of this is when you actually have the facility and you start rescuing girls out, and I understand a lot of the agencies are thrilled that you guys are going to be here because you have a place for these girls to go.
Absolutely.
At that point, it becomes very confidential and very therapeutic as to where they're going to go and what's going to happen. And all that training is going on now behind the scenes. Right. But you have one of the banks here is giving you an office. And you're going to have an open house. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, American West Bank donated office space to us so we could open up our administration and advocacy center.
Right.
So when there's a girl who calls and says, I need help, I need to talk to somebody, where are we going to talk to her? How are we going to meet with her? Because, you know, perpetrators can try to infiltrate that in order to lure the girls back in. And so we can't meet with them at Grace House, which would be the confidential residential facility. So the Advocacy Center is where we will be able to meet with these girls, talk with them, but also to train up a cadre of volunteers that are out in the community helping to train people for victim identification. So we're all more aware. So when we see this girl, we'll be able to say, hey, do you know that there's help? And we're here to help you.
And that location is?
It's on 503 Airport Road.
Okay. Now, for those who don't know, well, you probably know where Airport Road is. On one side is the Pepsi headquarters, and on the other side is that little mini racetrack thing, and then the bank headquarters on this side. And it was a branch office, but you got the upstairs of that little branch, bank branch, there at 503 Airport. You're going to have an open house?
We are. This month is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and we will be holding an open house on April 16th.
April 16th.
And what's great about that, it's more than an open house. At 12:30, we're also going to have a prayer time between 12:30 and 1:30, and prayer is powerful and effective. And so we really invite out all those prayer warriors to come on out during that time and just join us in prayer over this center. Just think about the girls that are going to come through that door. And we really want the faith community to come on out and pray with us. Following that prayer time will be an open house. You can come by any time between 1:30 and 5:30, enjoy some refreshments. Ask those questions that you might have. Let us know if you want to be involved in other ways, but I will be there to greet you, and we'd love to have everybody come on by.
I can't tell you how great this is that an organization here in Southern Oregon is stepping up to take on this issue. A lot of communities talk about it, a lot of people talk about it. They know that it's a problem, but it's something you just kind of hope that's over there. You really don't want to tackle. But Sharre and the crew here are doing something about it, building the home, now having a center where and an advocacy center where these girls can come and have contact, and a place that they can be interviewed and processed. Again, that's 503 Airport Road. So mark this down, April 16th. That'll be coming up on a Wednesday, Thursday?
Day after tax day. I know I should have put it out there,
And you're going to need some refreshments. You can come over there, and if you can be there around noon or so for the prayer time, and then the open house later on during that day. But more importantly, come, ask questions, find out what's going on, and maybe you feel the tug in your life to be a part of this. Maybe you've had some experience with it in your family or others, and you really see the need for this. They not only need people that can do construction, they need people that can get involved in a volunteer level and begin to learn the process. So what kind of volunteers do you need in that area?
Well, right now we're training up advocate volunteers, and what they do is they will learn all about this and how to work with girls. We will have a training coming up as well, a comprehensive training that includes trauma-informed care and what is the nature of sex trafficking, educate them about that. But we want to be able to host small group gatherings to further inform the community and engage them and helping prevent this and address the horrific industry of human sex trafficking.
And that's the other part of this. Not only are you going to tackle the problem of those who are involved in it and rescue them out, and that's the issue, rescue them out. And let me tell you folks, this takes a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of therapy. But to prevent it is in something entirely different. I don't think parents realize how vulnerable these kids are, and some steps that parents can do to become more aware of it.
Absolutely. And there's some good organizations that are in our community right now that are solely focused on that prevention arm. And we are, very grateful to partner with them. And everybody needs to do their part and just become informed. The more informed we are, the better our community and healthier our community can be. And when we're aware of what sex trafficking looks like, you're more likely to be able to stop that or to report that. There was a study that came out not too long ago of healthcare professionals, social workers, and half of them were not able to identify a victim of sex trafficking in front of them. And so we can do our part just by becoming more aware.
All right. And the other thing is, this issue is now becoming big and more attention given to it, which is really good. I think across the country we're starting to wake up to this issue, and we're thinking, America, you got this kind of a problem? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And legislatively there's some things going on too, right?
Right, absolutely. There's a lot more efforts right now to address the issue of human sex trafficking. For so long, the child would be prosecuted for prostitution, and the perpetrator would get a hand slap. And so now they are treating that as a crime against that child and treating that child as the victim and linking them to the services needed. And there are some legislations in a bill that was out there pending, and there was some problems with that, but we're hoping that more action will be done in this area. And our state has really done a lot of good things.
All right, we're almost out of time, but let me give you Sharre's phone number, 530-227-2474. That's 530-227-2474. 227-2474 if you're interested in volunteering, working, learning out more information. Don't forget the open house coming up at the new office center there, the administration center, April 16th, 503 Airport Road. We'll talk more about it as we get closer to her. And if you're a contractor and you want to get involved, give them a call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.